The 9/11 attacks exposed serious failures in how U.S. intelligence agencies handled warnings about possible terrorist plots. Multiple agencies, including the CIA, FBI, and NSA, held fragments of information about al-Qaeda's intentions, but these were not effectively shared or acted upon. This led to intense debate about whether the failures came from incompetence, structural problems, or something more deliberate. Let's take a look at a detailed account of what was actually known, when it was known, and why the response fell short. Based on the 9/11 Commission report of 2004, the joint inquiry by the Senate and House Intelligence Committees of 2002, CIA and FBI Inspector General reports, and declassified government documents. The CIA had been monitoring al-Qaeda since the mid-1990s. In 1996, the CIA's Counterterrorist Center created a special unit known as Alex Station, led by Michael Scheuer, to track Osama bin Laden. On February 23, 1998, bin Laden issued a public fatwa, or religious ruling, through the World Islamic Front for Jihad against Jews and Crusaders, calling for attacks on Americans wherever they are. On December 4, 1998, CIA Director George Tenet sent a memo to staff declaring that the agency was at war with bin Laden. By late 1999, U.S. intelligence knew al-Qaeda was planning significant operations. On January 5 to 8, 2000, the CIA tracked two known operatives, Khalid al-Midhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, to a meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which was later identified as a planning session connected to the 9/11 plot. The CIA photographed them and learned that al-Midhar had a U.S. visa. Both men entered the United States on January 15, 2000. The CIA, however, failed to alert the FBI or place their names on a watch list until August 23, 2001. During that time, al-Midhar and al-Hazmi lived openly in San Diego. This failure was confirmed in the 9/11 Commission report and in the CIA Inspector General's report of 2005, which found that 50 to 60 CIA employees had known about the Kuala Lumpur meeting but did not share the information. The FBI also held critical intelligence that was mishandled. On July 10, 2001, FBI Special Agent Kenneth Williams of the Phoenix office sent a memo to headquarters, warning that Middle Eastern men were enrolling in U.S. flight schools, including one with ties to al-Qaeda. He suggested the activity might indicate a terrorist plot. The memo, known as the Phoenix Memo, was sent to FBI headquarters units including the Radical Fundamentalist Unit and the Osama bin Laden Unit, but it was not circulated further or prioritized. In August 2001, FBI agents in Minneapolis investigated Zacharias Moussaoui, a French citizen training at a flight school who had paid in cash and expressed interest only in flying, not in takeoffs or landings. Minneapolis agents suspected terrorism and requested a FISA warrant to search his laptop, but FBI headquarters denied the request, saying the evidence was insufficient. Moussaoui was arrested on immigration charges on August 16, 2001. Later investigations determined he was not assigned to the 9/11 operation itself, but may have been intended for a later or backup plot. The NSA intercepted communications suggesting an al-Qaeda attack but did not translate or distribute them effectively. In 1999 and 2000, NSA picked up messages referring to a big wedding, a code phrase for an attack, but these were not analyzed in time. In early 2001, the NSA intercepted calls between al-Qaeda's communications hub in Yemen and Afghanistan, some of which involved figures later linked to the plot. However, many of these were translated only after 9/11. The NSA's internal review in 2004 admitted that it had significant information on al-Midhar and al-Hazmi but failed to share it properly. The failure of coordination between agencies was central. Legal restrictions and bureaucratic habits created a wall between intelligence gathering and law enforcement. For example, although the CIA finally notified the FBI on August 23, 2001, that al-Midhar and al-Hazmi were in the United States, the FBI's search was given low priority and limited resources. The 9/11 Commission found that FBI systems were outdated, with agents unable to conduct basic database searches efficiently. CIA officers often withheld information from the FBI, viewing it primarily as a law enforcement agency, not as a partner in foreign intelligence operations. Warnings from foreign intelligence services varied in detail and reliability. German intelligence reported in 1999 to 2000 that Mohammed Haider Zamir, a Syrian-born German, had connections to al-Qaeda and acted as a facilitator for members of the Hamburg cell, a group of radical Islamist students in Hamburg, Germany, who later became central to the 9/11 attacks. But the reporting did not specify any plans for the attacks. A July 2001 warning from Egyptian intelligence about airplane attacks appeared in press accounts but was not confirmed in official investigations. Reports that the FBI received a Yemen tip on September 10, 2001 are not substantiated. What is confirmed is that NSA intercepted calls from Al-Qaeda's Yemen hub on September 10, 2001, but these were translated only after the attacks. Some details show how weak U.S. preparedness was. The FAA had received multiple general warnings in spring and summer 2001 about possible hijackings, some mentioning Middle Eastern groups, but the alerts were routine and not escalated. The FAA's no-fly list, which bans certain individuals from boarding commercial flights, had only 16 names as of September 2001, none of which were the hijackers. Despite the scale of the bin Laden threat, the FBI's New York office, which handled most Al-Qaeda cases, had only one dedicated intelligence analyst assigned to bin Laden cases in 2001. At the highest level, the White House received direct warnings. On August 6, 2001, President George W. Bush was given a presidential daily brief titled, Bin Laden Determined to Strike in U.S. The PDB stated that Al-Qaeda wanted to conduct attacks inside the United States, possibly hijackings, and noted patterns of surveillance of New York buildings. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice later testified that the brief was historical and not a specific warning. The 9/11 Commission found that no high-level meeting followed to address the immediate threat. Counterterrorism advisor Richard Clarke later wrote in his 2004 book, Against All Enemies, that the Bush administration gave lower priority to Al-Qaeda compared to the Clinton administration, which had held frequent cabinet-level meetings on the subject. Theories of intentional neglect have circulated, but official investigations rejected them. The Joint Inquiry and the 9/11 Commission report concluded that the failures were due to systemic problems, poor communication, outdated technology, and a lack of imagination. The CIA Inspector General's report stated that although dozens of CIA personnel had known about al-Midhar and al-Hazmi, there was no evidence of deliberate sabotage. Former FBI agent John O'Neill, who had led bin Laden investigations before resigning in August 2001 due to frustration with bureaucracy and lack of resources, and who later died in the World Trade Center on September 11, believed that bureaucratic resistance and lack of seriousness about Al-Qaeda were major problems. After the attacks, major reforms followed. Congress passed the Patriot Act in October 2001, which removed legal barriers and streamlined procedures for intelligence agencies to share information. The Department of Homeland Security was created in 2002 to combine multiple federal agencies responsible for domestic security, including border protection, emergency response, and counterterrorism. In 2004, Congress established the Director of National Intelligence to coordinate and oversee all 16 U.S. intelligence agencies, ensuring better communication and unified priorities across the intelligence community. These changes were intended to address the failures exposed by 9/11, but the missed warnings remain a clear case study of how scattered information, if not connected and acted on, can allow catastrophic attacks to succeed. On October 7, 2001, the U.S. launched military operations in Afghanistan, aiming to remove the Taliban from power for harboring al-Qaeda and to disrupt al-Qaeda's networks after the 9/11 attacks. On March 20, 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq, claiming that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and links to terrorism. However, subsequent investigations, including the Iraq Survey Group report in 2004, found no weapons of mass destruction and no evidence linking Iraq directly to 9/11. Critics, including journalists, historians, and some politicians, argue that the Bush administration used the post-9/11 environment to justify military action in countries that did not pose a clear direct threat, and that the attacks made it easier to gain public and congressional support for these wars.